Chapter 5, the Saboteur. Ooh, very curious about that one.
Yeah, so this is all about the way this all sounds in our head, our inner dialogue as we're choosing what to eat, okay? People don't realize how consciousness works in the brain. Now, not to say that we've got this all figured out. We don't as scientists, but we know a lot. And here's what we know. The voice in your head that's got that constant sort of chattery narrative to you is not coming from one place. It's distributed, okay? Different parts of the brain that govern different functions, by and large, not universally, but by and large, create their own voice in your head about that. So, and their own subjective conscious experience about that, which means that, visual cortex is also producing what it feels like to see red. Not just that you're seeing red and you can respond accordingly, but there's some sort of subjective perceptual experience around that, right? So what we don't realize is that very basic physiological processes result in sounds and a narrative of a stream of consciousness that sounds like us talking to ourselves and making decisions about things when it's not. So if your brain is hijacked, it'll show up as you feeling like you made a different decision. This is really critical. So I sometimes try to illustrate this by asking someone to really, truly try to hold their breath for 2 minutes, or hold their breath while they run up 10 flights of stairs, something that almost nobody can ever do, right? And to listen in their mind, in their brain, for what it sounds like when they choose to breathe. Because if you're really trying to hold your breath, at some point you'll notice that you feel like you've changed your mind. And you've decided to breathe. But really what's happened is that your brain has decided you're going to die without oxygen and that you better breathe now. And so it sounds like you've decided to breathe. So there's amazing research on this that I won't get into, where basically even if we stick an electrode in your brain and make things happen, you come away with the feeling that you decided to do it. Even if you weren't the one who decided who like the electrodes going in without your knowledge. Yeah. You feel like you chose to wiggle your finger. Right. And it's like, well, how could you have done that? That was like an electrode in your brain, right? You didn't decide to wiggle it. And you're like, I don't know. I feel like I decided to wiggle my finger. Yeah. So here's the import of this, Lena. This is, my program, Bright Line Eating, it works for a huge spectrum of people. It actually works for people who are low on the susceptibility scale, medium on the susceptibility scale, and high. It works for all kinds of people, but my heart especially bleeds for the people who are really high on the susceptibility scale, have health and weight issues, have tried well over a dozen times in their life to lose weight unsuccessfully. And this chapter matters the most to me because those people, Lena, have watched themselves, they believe, they've watched themselves dedicate themselves to a new diet, then choose to eat pizza on a Friday night after a long, hard week. And what we know from psychological theory, it's called self-perception theory, is you come to learn about yourself by observing your own behavior. Your deepest identities emerge largely out of watching yourself behave over a period of time. And so what you come to believe about yourself is that you don't love yourself, that you're deeply—
you don't have willpower.
You have no willpower. In many cases, you hate yourself, expose yourself, you're weak, because you watch yourself abuse yourself with food and honestly treat yourself worse than you'd treat your worst enemy.
Absolutely.
And who would do that except someone who hates themselves?
Exactly.
So you connect the dots erroneously and believe that you have deep-seated, like someday I would love to talk to Oprah Winfrey because I can only imagine the cognitive dissonance in that woman's mind saying, well, wait a second. I know I'm not afraid of success. Let's look at the record, right? Yes. I'm not afraid of success, right? Yes. But how does she reconcile her pattern of issues with weight, right? Yes. There must be, I predict that there's a part of her that believes deep down that she holds out some part of her that won't let herself succeed or that feels too flawed to finally crush the weight issue, right? And it's not true. Her brain is hijacked. Like it's got nothing to do with that. right?
Exactly. It's
She's
not
the badass that she thinks she is. She totally is, right?
She is.
There's other stuff going on.
She is. She is. I love this chapter too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the good news is, let me just say one more sentence before we move on. The good news is that it doesn't take that much to reverse that that identity. When you start doing bright line eating and the way I walk you out of the deep dark forest on this, one step at a time, within just a matter of days, weeks, or months, like not very long, we're talking like less than 6 months.
Wow.
Someone's identity completely turns around. And, if you ask them, for example, a question like, how many years of therapy do you think it would take for you to unpack, 90% of your psychological issues, right? They start the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp thinking it would take 30 years of therapy. And they, 6 months later, they're like, yeah, I don't think I need therapy at all. I'm good.
Incredible. It's an all-in-one system.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love it.